In this video, you will discover the origins of the terrifying race of creatures in the recently released horror film, The Watchers, and its relationship with the native Irish beliefs about the creatures who live in the mounds. A long time ago, a race of people with magical abilities came to Ireland. They fought their first battle for the island near Cong in County Mayo. Their opponents were the Firbolgs. Their second battle at Moytura was against much more terrifying enemies, Fomorians and Balor. However, in their third battle, they lost their reign over the island. The land was given to Milesians, the forefathers of the Irish. The magical race went underground to rule their own world under the hills. This magical race was Tuatha De Danann. At least, this is what medieval literature tells us. They could not compete with regular people and were banished under the hills. These hills in Irish are called She. Some time has passed, and these literary figures either transformed or influenced a native Irish tradition of the veneration of the dead. You see, not all the hills in Ireland are a natural origin. Some are burial mounds or remnants of prehistoric buildings. Everything that is unusual needs an explanation in mythology. This was a perfect explanation. Mounds were the entryways to the otherworld, and their inhabitants were called fairies in English. In the film, The Watchers, there is an explanation of the genesis of the terrifying creatures living in the forest. They are presented as former gods with wings who were banished and locked underground by people. Moreover, it seems the creatures live in the tunnels, with giant holes in the ground being their entryways. They store different memorabilia there, supposedly, to learn more about people. This is not what the Irish thought of those living underground. There are two strands of beliefs mixed together to a degree. First is the Christian influence. According to it, angels of pride, those who followed Lucifer's revolt, were thrown from the heavens to earth. There are many depictions of this in the art in different epochs. According to the Irish belief, they do not have any blood in their veins, so they steal either very young boys or, better, women, sometimes pregnant women, to bring blood into their race to sign their names at the gates of heaven and enter. The other strand is the native belief in the souls of the deceased and their ability to stay in this world. They have names, it seems, only until they are remembered by others. They are not malicious in their nature. Moreover, they are called the good people. On the topic of names, traditionally, we as a species sometimes did not like to call things by their sacred names out of fear. We use periphrases such as the brown one for a bear, or shadow-tailed for a squirrel. The same goes for the creatures living inside the mounds. They are called the people of the hill crowd, the good people, the small folk, the gentle, the folk with red caps, and so on and so forth. In The Watchers, we see a small red-haired child, which is, in fact, a very Irish description of the creatures. However, in the majority of the cases, this is not true. Their appearance does not give them away. They look like ordinary people but act strangely. The Watchers showed this as well with a different idea that the creatures mimic people. Irish good people, as you remember, at least partially consist of the deceased people. What is so strange in their behaviour? Well, first of all, they are not fond of salt and iron. So people were using these two to protect themselves and their children from being stolen. Then, they cannot enter your house without an invitation. However, if for some reason you invited them, they will not leave until you trick them into doing that. You might want to seek the help of a wise woman, just saying. Then, they will help you but will also give a very strict and unusual prohibition. For example, to not tell anyone about them or about the money they gave you. While I said previously that the creatures in the mounds are mostly benevolent in their nature, they, unfortunately, also cause a lot of harm sometimes. First, they steal children and women who are either pregnant or about to get married or newly married. Unlike the reasoning given in The Watchers, this is not to keep them in a room like a theatre. They steal people to bring red blood into their society. Yes, answering your question, They do, it seems, also have their own children and invite human midwives to deliver them. The Watchers, however, show a different version of this legend. According to the film, the ancient fairies were guardians and partners of humans and produced offspring. These creatures were most capable in the art of transformation. They could mimic even the dead. Their whereabouts became unknown after the fairies were banished underground and sealed. The most disturbing piece of belief in Ireland is probably the one about the Changelings. These are the creatures left instead of your baby by those in the mounds. This creature resembles your child but also does not. It is short-tempered, does not speak, always cries. You can trick it into revealing itself though. As these creatures are many years old, they have seen things. By saying something incredibly stupid like, "Oh, I am going to brew some beer in an eggshell," you will provoke the creature to reprimand you. Then, the only way to get back your child is to threaten the creature. With red-hot iron, for example. Do you see where I am going with this? Imagine someone else's child behaving poorly and their parents decided this was a changeling. The only way to return their own child is to harm this one and wait for the return. Needless to say, this tradition must have caused some unnecessary damage. Read about the case of Bridget Cleary. You will be shocked. When can you meet or avoid these creatures? Well, I am glad you asked me today. They are the most active during 3 particular days and nights of the year. May Day on the 1st of May, the Harvest Festival Day on the 1st of August, Halloween night on the 31 of October. You can meet them virtually everywhere. On the road, on the hills, on the beach, on the riverbank. They can come to your house. They can even make you disoriented or transport you somewhere far away from your destination. Going into a creepy-looking forest is also not a good idea, especially in the evening. When you meet them, they can invite you into their dwelling inside the mound as a guest. It is nice and spacious inside. There might even be something resembling a house there or a castle. You, however, will have difficulties escaping. Not because of malicious intent, but simply because you would not know the time there has a different flow. What looks like a minute for you might be hours or even days in the world of humans. You might be saved by a recently deceased person who will ask you to pass the message to others about them. As you can see, the creatures in the Watchers were somewhat influenced by Irish folklore. Some motifs are shown in the film. The creatures are associated with the underground, though the Irish underground is much more pleasant to inhabit. The creatures look like ordinary people, but the intent differs. They were different a long time ago, but now it's their final form. This concludes the video on the creatures from the mounds in Ireland and their representation in the Watchers. Stay safe on the surface. Stay home.
Hey folklings, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos from Nick the Scholar.